Alaska Airlines has teamed up with Hawaiian Airlines to create new nonstop international flights. Go to alaskaair.com or hawaiianairlines.com, and I'll tell you more details later in the show. I'm Rachel Belle, and this is Your Last Meal, the show where celebrities share stories about the foods they love most, and we dig into the history, culture, or science of those meals with experts from around the world. Today on the program, humorist Dave Barry. Dave wrote a weekly, nationally syndicated column that appeared in 500 newspapers from 1983 to 2005. And that column won him a Pulitzer Prize. But when newspapers started to tank, he doubled down on writing books. Dave has published dozens of books, but his new one is his very first memoir. It's called Class Clown, The Memoirs of a Professional Wise Ass, How I Went 77 Years Without Growing Up. Case in point, Dave really loves ketchup.
You don't need to refrigerate ketchup or mustard. In my household, we don't put those things in the refrigerator.
Is that true? Do you really not have to refrigerate ketchup and mustard? What about butter, soy sauce, peanut butter? A food safety and sanitation expert pops in to tell us where we should be keeping our condiments. That's coming up later in the show. But first, my conversation with Dave Barry.
I don't like lobster. I know everybody else does, and it's great. I'm happy for them. And people want to eat a gigantic insect. It's fine with me. It's just I don't want to eat it. So anyway, somebody sent me as a gift a live Maine lobster in a box, which I was then, I think, supposed to take home and throw into a pot of boiling water. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want this lobster, but I felt kind of responsible for it. And so, and it come from Maine. I had a friend in Maine named Tom Schroff. I Federal Expressed the lobster, which I had named Dwayne, back to Maine to Tom, and with the promise that he would free it, let it go in the waters of Maine where it had come from originally. And he did. So that lobster had some frequent flyer miles, and we came all the way from Maine to Miami, and it went back to Maine. The lobster's probably thinking, what is going on here? I mean, I'm not the brightest creature in the world, but this seems a little weird. It's probably what the lobster was thinking. To this day, that lobster is grateful to me and writes to me every Christmas.
Wow. Did you get video proof that the lobster was released back into the sea?
No, I didn't. But Tom Schroff was a newspaper man and therefore incapable of being untruthful. And he told me he let it go in the harbor, and I believe him. Now, he could have eaten it because he did like lobster. I know that for a fact. But I don't. He said he let it go, and I believe him.
Did he tell you that while wearing a lobster bib with melted butter all over his face?
And cracking a claw.
Yeah.
Anything that you have to crack open to eat is nature's way of telling you that nature doesn't want you to eat it, is my feeling.
Can I make a dad joke, even though I'm not a dad?
Yes.
I was thinking, since you named your lobster Dwayne, maybe his name could be Dwayne the Rock Lobster.
A B-52s reference.
Yeah. I was hoping he played that song when he released him back into the sea.
that would have been good. Well, I don't think he thought of it, nor did I, until just hearing it from you just now. But if we ever invent time travel, and I'm sure that's just right around the corner,
yep.
I will go back and have Tom do that when he releases Dwayne, play that song.
There is one seafood that you like. Do you remember what you said once in like 1987? It's on the internet now.
One seafood that I like.
It's in stick form.
Oh, fish sticks. Yeah. I like fish sticks. I think this might have been the point of that column. Is the less the food looks like how it started out, the more I'm likely to like it. Like you can look at a hamburger and you would never, if you didn't know, in a million years conclude that it came from a cow. Yeah. But if you look at a lobster or a crab or an oyster, there's no question in your mind what you're looking at. Fish sticks don't look like fish at all.
It could be a mozzarella stick.
It could be any kind of stick. Anything in stick form, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. You know? It could be a stick.
Well, I'm not going to probably eat a stick. But, because then it would have to be something that didn't look like a stick for me to want to eat a stick. If you know what I'm saying, if you follow I'm not sure
following.
I do. Yeah. Don't follow too far.
I subscribe to following you. Dave says he got his sense of humor from his mom. And before we get into this next section, a heads up that we will be briefly talking about suicide. If you or someone you know is in crisis, call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. or contact the crisis text line by texting TALK, TALK, to 741-741. You describe both of your parents as being very funny, but your mom as being the funnier one, a darker sense of humor. But you describe your mom as this. You say, Mom was funny. She could always be funny, but funny isn't the same thing as happy. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. First of all, she was the funniest, to this day, I think, the funniest person I ever knew. She could see the humor in virtually any situation. That was one of her great strengths, but she was not a happy person. She suffered from depression most of her life. She didn't have a great childhood. I don't know if that had much to do with it. She didn't inflict any of that on us kids. I mean, we were aware of it, that she was dealing with depression a lot of the time. But she was a wonderful, loving mom. We had a great childhood. And as I say, she made us laugh all the time. She was genuinely funny. And I don't know how those two things coexist in a person the way they did in her. But ultimately, and I talk about this in the book, my mom committed suicide, which was a shock to us, great shock, but it was not that much of a surprise in a way. I mean, she had been dealing with her depression for her whole life. And after my dad died, it got worse. She still made us laugh a lot. I mean, right up to the end, she made us laugh. But in the end, she just didn't want to keep going. And that was a difficult thing.
In the first chapter of the book, Dave gives several examples of his mom's humor. He says she had much more of an edge than the other 1950s housewives he knew.
My mom and I had a tradition. Every year, this neighbor baked a fruitcake. And I mean, I think the first year we actually tried. It was this very dense thing. And it's a cliche to say you don't like fruitcake, but I don't like fruitcake. I have never liked fruitcake. So
I don't think anybody really likes it. It seems like the punchline of baked
yes,
goods.
Right. You know the joke that there's only one fruitcake and it's been circulating for hundreds of years because people just give it to other people. This neighbor, who was a perfectly nice person, is baking a fruitcake, and we didn't want to say anything, but it became a tradition. I'm not really sure how it started, but we did it for years and years. I would go up, from where I lived to visit over the holidays. And my mom would go, Davy, the fruitcake has arrived. And I go, oh, good. And she would go, let's hope we don't accidentally leave it on the door sill again. And we would put it on the sill of our kitchen door, which led to the outside. And then Mom would go, well, it's drafty in here. I best close the door. And she would slam the door as hard as she could on this fruitcake. And sometimes several times, it was a very dense fruitcake. And we go, oh no, the fruitcake is ruined. And we'd have to throw it in the garbage. And that was just the best Christmas tradition we ever had. But there was one other food thing with my mom. You know what cream chip beef is, yes?
Yes, I do. Okay. I've never had it. I've just heard of it. It seems like something people used to eat in the Army. In the Army,
and they called it SOS with S.
Shit on a shingle.
So my mom made cream chip beef for it, and I loved it. I mean, I really did love it. And then I don't think I've ever had it since I was a kid because my mom made it, nobody else made it.
Can you explain what it is for most people who might not?
Not really. No, it's like this creamy sauce, I don't know what kind of sauce, really, but it's white. And then there's these little strips of beef in it, chip beef, that came in a can or a jar. They didn't come in from a delicatessen or a butcher. But anyway, and then you put it on something, toast usually. That's where they got the SOS. Or I think in our house, we put it on, rice. But anyway, I liked it. It was good. But she made it. And now this is where your culinary knowledge may come into play. I believe she made it in something that was like a double boiler. But it was on the stove. There was a thing involved in another thing. Why I can remember all this so vividly, because it was a big moment. One night, my cousin John, who was going to be appearing on television the next day in New York City, we live in New York, was going to be playing the flute on the Ted Mack Original Amateur Hour. I don't know why I remember all these details, but we were very excited. Cousin John from the Midwest was going to come to our house to spend the night with us, and the next day he was going to be on national television on the Ted Mack Original Amateur Hour. And we're all very excited. And Mom was making cream chip beef. There's a knock on the door, and it's my cousin John arriving from the flute prodigy. And we all go to the front door. There's cousin John, and there's this explosion. I mean, a loud boom. And we go in to the kitchen, and literally every surface of our kitchen, the wall, the ceiling, was cream chip beef.
Oh,
It
no.
was on the light. It was everywhere. I've told that story to people and they say, well, that's not how you make cream cheese. You don't use a double boiler to make cream. So I don't really know what exactly the culinary mechanism was, but it really did happen. Both
I
parts of
believe
that.
you.
My
I
cousin
believe you.
John really did play the flute on Ted McIntyre. You can go look that up. And we had cream chip beef all over our kitchen walls and everything.
I imagine for some reason that when you opened the door, your cousin was just like, "Doodle-doodle," like playing the flute just right on the doormat.
No, he wasn't. He did not
Okay.
do that.
Okay. That part
He,
did
he
not
was a
happen.
serious flautist. Wouldn't be doing that on our doorstep, I don't think.
I'm sorry that I gave that impression that he wasn't serious.
Yeah, John, if you're watching this tonight, we know that you wouldn't, and I'm sure he is watching.
Sorry,
everybody.
John. Sorry. After the break, Dave shares his last meal, which involves a lot of strong feelings about ketchup packets. And do you keep your maple syrup in the fridge or in the pantry? What about chili crisp? Where do you keep your Worcester sauce? An expert will weigh in after the break. Besides being a podcast host, TV host, and cookbook author, I am a vacation psychic, which is how I know for a fact that a flight on Alaska Airlines is in your future. Alaska has teamed up with Hawaiian Airlines to offer nonstop flights from Seattle to Tokyo. So you can sit back, relax, and enjoy all the Pacific Northwest refreshments they have on board, like a Fremont Brewing IPA made special for Alaska passengers, a bunch of tasty cocktails in a can from Straightaway, and Washington wine and bubbles. 10 hours later, you are on the ground in Tokyo, ready to slurp up more noodles than you have ever slurped before. Book your adventure today at alaskaair.com and hawaiianairlines.com. What would your last meal be?
Okay, that was easy for me. Cheeseburger and French fries.
Okay. From where?
Well, I live in Miami, Coral Gables area. All of a sudden, hamburgers were big again. Everybody was making good, juicy hamburgers. I don't really have any particular preference anymore. I like them all. They're all good. I like,
Wow.
Yeah, it's really hard to get a crappy hamburger, it feels like, anymore at a restaurant. It's like when they discovered that American beer, like Budweiser, wasn't that great. And so every restaurant just started getting different kinds of beer. What I guess I'm getting at here is I'm not really that picky about anything involving food that I like. And I like cheeseburgers a lot, except for I'm not really interested in a McDonald's cheeseburger. But above that level, pretty much all of them are fine with me.
That's great. It helps to like everything. That makes
Yes,
life
I'm
so
really-
much better.
I'm really a great restaurant customer. It has to be really awful for me to go, I don't like this. And even then, I would never say that out loud. I would just say it to my wife that I don't like this. That we would still overtip because we're just pathetic that way.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay, tell me about your perfect cheeseburger then. Go layer by layer. What do you want on there? What kind
okay.
of cheese? How do you want the meat cooked? All that.
Okay, well, it's got to be cheddar cheese. That's probably the most important single thing. Not American cheese, not like Kraft single slices. Cheddar cheese on that cheeseburger. Am I getting too foodie if I say that I would kind of like a brioche bun?
No, we love that around here. Toasted or untoasted?
Well, a little toasted,
Okay.
a little bit toasted, not too soft. Not too doughy. Just a little crispness to it. Crispness to it.
A little Christmas.
Christmas and some cheddar cheese, and then the patty. Just good quality beef, cooked medium, not too well. Maybe a little pink on the inside. No pickle, no onion, no lettuce, no tomato, just ketchup. I like ketchup on a cheeseburger because I also like ketchup on French fries. And if you have a pile of French fries and a hamburger there and you just squirt ketchup all over everything, you cannot go wrong. There's going to be ketchup all over the place and it's just going to taste great.
And so fun if it's a squeeze bottle too.
Yeah. Well, let it go. Oh, yeah. No, the ketchup are we allowed to go into the ketchup issue?
Oh my gosh. Yes. This is a ketchup positive podcast.
No packets of ketchup. See, that's why one of the reasons you don't want to go to a fast food place. Those little horrible ketchup packets that were invented by Adolf Hitler. That's known fact of science and
Well, now as
history.
a Jewish woman, I feel
Okay.
Yeah, I've never.
I myself am not
again.
Jewish. My wife is Jewish. My daughter is Jewish. I belong to a temple. It's a very relaxed temple. beyond reform, but I do attend more Jewish services than most of my Jewish friends do. I don't know how I got into that. Oh yeah, because we're talking about Hitler. Yeah, I don't know how I could forget that. The little individual packets of ketchup and mustard were invented by Adolf Hitler, and they should be banned for that reason. And there should be containers that you can get a reasonable amount of condiment from without tearing apart 43 square feet of aluminum foil to get to them. And here's the thing, this is not related to my last meal hamburger, cheeseburger, but you don't need to refrigerate ketchup or mustard. In my household, we don't put those things in the refrigerator. And people say, well, it says on the label that you're supposed to. And I said, well, that's because some lawyer or Adolf Hitler said you had to put that on the label. But if you go to a restaurant, there's going to be ketchup and mustard all over the place.
It's a good point.
All day, and it's not in a refrigerator because it doesn't have to be in the refrigerator. So what you're doing, if you make a nice cheeseburger, nice French fries, and then bring cold ketchup and squirt it on those things, is ruining your meal, people.
We found his hot button issue, everyone.
You got damn right you did.
He's mad.
You're gosh darn tootin' right. I'm cleaning it up so that you don't have to bleep.
Thank you. This is PBS after all. Just we only darn and we only toot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait a minute. Back to the ketchup packets.
Yeah.
Do you not like them because do you think the ketchup tastes different inside, or you don't like the act of
because you have to
them?
open 12 of them to get enough ketchup out of it.
Yeah.
And then you got all these little filthy little aluminum packets sitting all around. What are you going to do with those? And it just delays forever the gratification. And it's never enough ketchup. I'm going to go straight from here to the doctor and have my blood pressure checked. I'm so outraged about this.
Dave is passionate about letting his ketchup and mustard live on the counter. And it's not uncommon for people to have some identity attached to where they store certain foods and condiments. Let's talk about butter. Butter is a big one. People who keep a stick of softened butter on the counter like to talk about it, and I think they just love life a little bit more than those who keep their butter in the fridge. Peanut butter. Where do you store your peanut butter? In the pantry or in the fridge like a psychopath? I keep my Mexican hot sauces in the pantry, but my sriracha in the fridge. Why? Because I am a fascinating, complicated, mysterious woman. But there are condiments that I have never been sure about. Where is the soy sauce supposed to live? Where am I supposed to keep the fish sauce? There are people who know all about this stuff. And one of them is Angela Anandappa, Executive Director of the Alliance for Advanced Sanitation, a nonprofit dedicated to improving food safety within the food industry. Let's start with the ketchup.
Well, the fridge is a good place to keep your ketchup, especially if you're not using it every day. So if you're using ketchup all the time, you're opening it and closing it and opening it and closing it. Every time you're opening that product, you're allowing something in the environment around you to get into that bottle as well, because the air moves things like mold around, right? If you were to have it on your countertop and you didn't use it so often, that's probably not a good idea. But if you're using it all the time, like a diner might have it, where you have customer after customer who's probably going to use it, and that bottle is going to be finished within the course of a few days. It's perfectly fine to leave it there because those products are formulated in such a way where they're going to be safe enough to leave on the counter.
And with something like ketchup that is pretty processed, is it more about getting sick, or is it more about sometimes the flavor changing, the quality going down, the color changing?
So ketchup is most likely going to taste a little funky, less than it being an unsafe situation if you had it sitting on the counter.
Let's talk about butter, because I think that's something that people kind of enjoy debating. Some people are strictly on the counter, and many people keep their butter in the fridge, which is less spreadable, but they believe it's more safe.
So as the butter queen, self-proclaimed butter queen, who thinks that butter should have its own category of food, there is an important distinction made between salted butter and unsalted butter. Unsalted butter is, generally speaking, less safe than salted butter. So we need to be a little more careful with that kind of butter. The other thing is butter is generally having a better taste or mouthfeel when you have it at room temperature. Butter isn't great when it's solid, when it's hard. So allowing it to come to a better temperature or closer to room temperature is desirable. People like it. I like it. Most people prefer a butter to be that way, right? Leaving it on the counter for a few days is fine. I would leave it for up to 3 to 4 days maximum on a counter. By that time, you should have finished it. I wouldn't store butter that's unopened in the package and things like that. I wouldn't store that on a countertop or in anything other than a fridge.
Do you leave your butter on the counter?
I do.
Let's talk about peanut butter.
Peanut butter is something that doesn't or should not have water in it. This is important. So if you're taking your peanut butter and using it with jelly, for instance, right? Cross-contamination. These are the kinds of things that make products go bad. Using a spoon or a knife or something in multiple containers. So we don't want to do that. If you do have a product like a peanut butter in the fridge, it's fine. It'll keep okay. It'll probably keep for a little bit longer. Peanut butter on its own that has been roasted and properly salted can stay in the pantry.
That's what I've always done. The flavors of foods get tamped down when they're cold. Like something I learned about ice cream is they use more sugar maybe than they would need because you can't taste the sweetness as much when it's so cold and frozen. So I think, yeah, like hot sauce I keep in my pantry. I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing that, but I don't like the flavor as much when it's ice cold.
Yeah, I think it depends on the product. Again, like this is why it's good to buy a small sizes of containers so that when you do have it at room temperature, you're going to use it up quickly. I would not recommend storing sauces for a long period of time at room temperature, just because over time, the bacteria will grow in some of them and mold will grow even easier than bacteria.
Is there sometimes mold, but you just can't even see it?
Absolutely. So we do studies for people who have problems with their products or who want to extend the shelf life of the products. This is the primary issue that they tend to have. They have yeast and mold growing in them and they don't even know they're in there. And sometimes under certain circumstances, those things can accelerate and get worse. You can make so many products that don't have preservatives, but the key thing is, are you going to store it correctly?
I grew up with an immigrant parent and I'm the kind of person that, would scrape the mold off the cheese because that's what my dad did. And I always say that I have, this iron stomach. Is there such thing as an iron stomach? Can you build up a tolerance or is anybody at risk for getting sick at all times?
Okay, that's a loaded question. Let me deconstruct that a little bit. The thing about molds is that what you see is literally the tip of the iceberg because mold is a huge organism that spreads and has like little tendrils going throughout. So what you might see is the point at which the organism has already developed quite a lot. So the fact that you're seeing it means this food product now has this mold pretty ingrained in it, right? So you want to be very careful about that because you don't know what mold is growing on it. Some of those molds can actually make you sick. And so we want to be careful about that. And we don't recommend eating something that has gone moldy because of that. Speaking of the iron stomach, I don't think people can say that they have an iron stomach per se. However, there are people who have, kind of a better tolerance for certain foods. Certainly, if you're traveling around, you have a different microbiome. And that's a different composition of bacteria, yeast, mold, all the organisms that grow within your body. We are made up of these microbes as well. It really depends on who the person is. But if you're a normal, healthy person, your body can tackle some of the assault that we put in when we eat things that are probably not as safe to eat.
Coincidentally, the New York Times recently put out a big, super researched article titled, "Do I Need to Refrigerate Ketchup? An A to Z Guide to Storing Condiments." They looked at 27 condiments and sauces and had experts weigh in on each. The one that really shocked me on this New York Times list was seeing that Worcester sauce should be kept in the fridge because I have kept mine in the pantry and I've had it in the pantry for 10 years.
Yes.
I don't think most people go through it very quickly at all. The last drop tasted good to me 10 years later. Should I have been keeping that in the fridge?
I think that you could keep it on the counter for a limited period of time. 10 years. Again, I would love to see what the composition of the Worcester sauce is.
The Times article says there is so much salt and so much vinegar in Worcester that you can keep it at room temp, but the flavors will diminish faster. Strangely, they didn't mention anything about keeping it in the pantry for a decade. There was one section of that New York Times article that made me audibly gasp when I read it. The mayonnaise section. For my entire life, all I've ever heard is how dangerous it is to bring a mayo-based salad to a picnic or a barbecue. You think you're going to show up to a potluck with a bowl of potato salad? You, my friend, are a murderer. But right there in the New York Times, these words were written. Shelf-stable commercial mayonnaise is safe when stored at room temperature after opening, the Health and Human Services Department advises, giving us 3 to 6 months to leave it in the pantry. What? Excuse me? Okay, they did say room temperature, not a hot summer day, but still, if you are listening and you keep your open jar of mayonnaise in the pantry, email me immediately. As a kid, we were indoctrinated with 3 rules almost daily. Don't talk to strangers, just say no to drugs, and don't leave macaroni salad out on the counter for more than 9 seconds. The Times article covered everything from chili crisp to fish sauce, maple syrup, and tahini. I was asked this question many times when I was out on book tour for Open Sesame because there are a lot of tahini recipes in the book. They say you can keep it in the pantry. I keep mine in the fridge. We are not done with Dave's last meal. When we come back, Dave and I will convince you that the best place to eat French fries is in an airplane bathroom. A few years ago, I needed to open a business bank account, which is one of the most adult things I've ever said. I was running Your Last Meal independently, and I instantly knew that I wanted to bank with BECU. BECU is a leader, member-owned, not-for-profit credit union open to anyone in Washington. And as a brand new business owner with a lot of questions, I just felt way more comfortable working with a local credit union. Like I said, BECU is not for profit, so their knowledgeable consultants and dedicated advisors put your best interests first, which also means they can offer you great rates and low fees on products and services, whether you're an adult like me with a business account or you have a personal checking and savings account. And BECU makes it so easy. They have neighborhood financial centers all over Washington. You have access to over 30,000 ATMs nationwide, and they do video banking. I also find their app to be particularly user-friendly. More than 1.5 million people trust BECU with their finances, including me. Learn more at becu.org. Oh yeah, we got to get back to your last meal. French fries. I've been asking people to rank from best to worst French fries. What is your top French fry?
Right up there. And now I know I made fun of this company earlier in reference to their hamburgers, but now I'm going to praise them in reference to
I knew you were going to say this, actually. I had a feeling.
Yeah, and everybody agrees on this. McDonald's makes unbelievably good French fries.
They do.
It is really hard to beat them. There are some places in Miami where I live, Cuban places that serve, basically it's a steak, beefsteak, the palomillo, but they cover them. You don't even see the steak when it comes to the table. It's a giant mound of French fries. And they are basically copies of the McDonald's French fry. Real skinny, real crisp. And that's as good as it gets, in my opinion. And
you have
crispy.
to eat them within 10 minutes, though.
Yeah.
Then they
get soggy.
And weird and cold. Yeah.
Well, yeah. French fries are not made to be taken anywhere. You should stand right next to the fryer. Eat them there. And if you ask the McDonald's people nicely, they will let you do that.
They will let you.
They'll let you back there.
In Japan, if you go to like a nice tempura restaurant where they fry each piece individually and then they put it in front of you at the bar, they should do that. You should get one French fry at a time, perfectly hot and crisp.
That would be hard to do, though, because they'd have to give them to you so fast for it to be satisfying.
Yeah, they have to get people who are real fast. That's why it hasn't been open yet. Nobody's fast enough. Maybe we should open that place.
Okay, sure.
Okay. What should we call it?
Fast fry, or
we'll come up with it later.
Yeah, we'll workshop. We're going to workshop that.
We're going to workshop that. Is there anything that you want to drink with your last meal?
Yeah, a beer. A good.
What kind of beer?
A nice cold beer. It's just a crisp, cold lager beer. Like Heineken is fine with me, or Stella Artois. That kind. I'm not a beer snob. I don't like crappy. I don't like most. I'll be honest. American beers are not as good as most European beers, but I like beer a lot, unless we're on an airplane, but we can't have this meal on an airplane for so many reasons. Just getting the fryer onto the plane. How are you going to explain that to the people? What I would say to them is, look, I fly all the time with this fryer and I've never had a problem. but
I'm a frequent fryer.
We're available for weddings, bar mitzvahs.
One more time for the cheap seats in the back.
Yeah.
Well, I'm circling back now, actually, to our last idea, because I was thinking that this one fry at a time, the restaurant would actually be on an airplane. So maybe not.
How would you do that? It would be a great idea. In the 50s, I think they tried it, to have really good food on an airplane. Nobody even really tries to do that anymore. They kind of pretend they do, but it's still coming out of a microwave up there.
Yeah. Well, they could turn the toilet into a fryer. They could just fill it with hot oil. And then you go in the bathroom and you do it yourself. You just drop it in.
I don't see why that would not work.
Me neither. And I'm a scientist and an aerospace engineer and a firefighter.
Yeah, you've given it a lot of thought, and that's all that it needs.
It is. Yeah. All you need is one good idea.
Yeah.
And that was Dave Barry's last meal. Pick up Dave's new book. It's called Class Clown. And if you miss his column, subscribe to his Substack newsletter that he started in January. Thanks to Angela Anandappa, Executive Director of the Alliance for Advanced Sanitation. Tell me more about being the butter queen.
I love butter, and I think I can taste the difference between the different butters. So I'm particularly picky about a butter, or I might say, no, I don't want to buy that butter. And for me, butter should be served with each meal. And I love to cook with butter. I love to make buttercream icing, for instance, for cakes. So that's my butter thing. It's the ultimate in living.
It is. Your Last Meal is a product of Seattle's Cascade PBS. Go to cascadepbs.org to become a member and get on-demand access to all PBS programming. You may have seen it in the news. Right now, we are at risk of losing federal funding and can really use your support. Membership starts at just $5 a month. This episode was produced and edited with Maliha Syed, with editing assistance from Serene Abuyazid, and mixed and mastered by senior producer Sarah Bernard. Original theme music by Prom Queen. We are a lean, mean, lady podcasting machine. Your Last Meal was created, hosted, and co-produced by me. Make sure you're signed up for my bi-weekly newsletter. It's called The Nosh. You can find a link in the show notes. And you can watch my TV show, also called The Nosh, on YouTube at cascadepbs.org, or if you're flying Alaska Airlines, it's in the in-flight entertainment. I'm Rachel Belle, and this is Your Last Meal.
For this, we left Egypt. It's for sale. Anyway.
You're saying it in the most goyish way. I have to imagine it in my grandma's voice.
For this, we left Egypt.
For this, we
left Egypt.
For this, we left Egypt.
We're going to circle back on that.
Yeah, can we use some more corporate terms?
My favorite is circle back. Circle back means we're just not going to do anything.
Circle back means I'm never speaking to you again.
Circle back means we just need to say something here. We need words to come out of our mouths. That's all it means. We're getting off on a tangent here, but
that's what we're wont to do.
Yeah, that's our want.
What is your drink of choice on an airplane?
Not beer. And I'll tell you, I love beer. But if you drink beer, you're going to need to pee, which is another thing you should learn to avoid having to do on an airplane if you possibly can.
Why is that?
Why don't you think peeing on an airplane is a great idea, or what? I mean, you should.
No, I want to know your reason for why you don't want to.
Because you have to push the person next to you, get up, squeeze, and squeeze past the person.
Where do you keep your Worcestershire sauce? Where do you keep your Worcestershire sauce?